What's up guys, Brady Figueroa coming at you with another video. And so with this new A Day to Remember record dropping in a couple of weeks, big ol' album, I thought now would be the best time to put out a discography ranking. I haven't done these in a while. I did them when I first started my channel, but I didn't really like how they turned out, especially because I used to keep my videos under 10 minutes, and as a result, I kind of had to rush certain things. Now, I can record these videos for as long as I want. So, yeah, let's do it. A Day to Remember albums ranked. Before I start though, I highly encourage you guys to subscribe to my channel where I do album reviews and overall rock and metal music content. I fully intend on doing a review for this new A Day to Remember record, so if you're a fan of this band, definitely stay tuned for that. And as always, these album rankings are always subjective, as opposed to my reviews where I kind of tend to keep things as objective as possible. These discography rankings in this video is going to be just solely about my opinions and how these albums register with me. From what I've seen, I do think my list is pretty well aligned with most A Day to Remember fans. If anything, we might get a little bit of disagreement towards the top of the list, but comment your list down below and we can absolutely have a little debate about it. That being said, I don't think there's going to be much debate on the album I'm placing at the bottom of the list, which is their most recent album, 2021's You Are Welcome. And probably the only album by this band that I would say I don't like at all. I'm all for bands evolving their sound and trying new things and even going a bit more mainstream like this album does. I mean, if you're a reasonably successful band, why not try and get more successful? If you're a fan of a band, that's ultimately what you should want for them, right? For them to be really successful and for more people to know their music. My point here is the direction they went with this album isn't why I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it is just because the songwriting and the music on here is just bad. Yeah, the mainstream pop pandering does kind of bug me quite a bit, but I mean, you listen to a song like High Diving and it's just like an absolute fucking train wreck of a song. And even the songs that go for a bit more of A Day to Remember's typical sound on this album just do not hit at all. I think Last Chance to Dance kind of works on this album because it's the closest we get to their metalcore stuff on here. But, I mean, if this album was on Homesick or Common Courtesy or For Those Who Have Heart or any of their more favorably looked upon albums, I don't think this would be the standout song that it is on this album. The pop-punk type tracks like Viva La Mexico and Degenerates are just kind of boring and cringy and just don't feel as fun and infectious as their material before this album. And the ballads on here are just really boring too, which sucks considering some of my favorite songs by this band, period, are ballads. And you'd think with this being overall like a pop and pop rock album that these ballads would kind of get more of a chance to shine and do their thing, but they just end up whizzing by, like with no memorability. I like that they tried to evolve their sound here, like I said earlier, don't get me wrong, but it was just a huge swing and a huge miss at the end of the day. In the number 6 spot, I'm actually going to take it way back to their major label debut, which was And Their Name Was Treason in 2005. With this album, it's definitely a huge improvement from You're Welcome, but I just feel like it's not fully there yet for the band. Like this obviously sounds like them, and it sounds like their most well-known and loved albums, but it's not quite there yet for me on this one. This album to me sounds like a band who is in the process of kind of figuring themselves out. The production on this album too does sound a bit more unrefined as opposed to their next array of albums. And don't get me wrong, songwriting wise, there are still some cool songs on here, like Your Way with Words Is Through Silence and You Should Have Killed Me When I Had the Chance. But overall, with full discography context, I just feel like the style and the songs on here just would be done way, way better on their future releases. Number 5, I'm going to give it to their 2016 album Bad Vibrations. Overall, a pretty solid album. If anything, maybe slightly cranking up the mainstream radio rock influence a little bit, but not for lack of quality. In fact, some of the songs that do that on here end up being highlights on the record for me, like Bullfight, Justified, great song. The track Reassemble has this awesome stomp to it the whole time that I find really enjoyable. The track Exposed is one of their most pure metalcore tracks to date in their discography and kind of channels like a Killswitch Engage or All That Remains. For me, there are two main issues with this album. One is that the pop-punk tracks in particular fall kind of flat for me. Naivety, Same About You. Just those songs don't, kind of like I said about You're Welcome earlier, they just don't feel as infectious and memorable, and they don't register with me as much. And my other issue is the production, especially the guitar tone. Like, if you hit play on the title track and that main riff kicks in, just listen to how, like, flaccid that main riff sounds. It's really just limp. The drums, from a production standpoint, sound a little weak too, and as a result, The heavy moments, in particular on here, just don't really hit for me. Number 4, I'm given to What Separates Me From You from 2010. I guess, would be their 4th album. And the album that definitely, at the time especially, did see them kind of tipping the seesaw a little bit more into the pop-punk side of their sound, which is probably, for me, why this album isn't closer to the top, because I'm just much more of a metalcore guy than I am a pop-punk guy. And there aren't many songs on this album that execute that balance as well, like I had come to know and love from them. There's still crushingly heavy songs on here, like Second Sucks, Sticks and Bricks, but they kind of feel like disparate elements and disparate songs on this album that is more of a pop-punk. It does have more of a pop-punk theme, I should say. We'll single out the song You Be Tails, I'll Be Sonic. That's always been a deep cut that I've gravitated towards off of this album just because of that groovy intro riff. The chorus has some more like darker undertones to it, which is a little unconventional for them, and it overall is more of like a metalcore type song. So the number 3 spot is where we're going to start arguing. Homesick. Really good album, still enjoy it. Now we're getting into the albums that I really do like and love through and through and revisit somewhat regularly. I think the main reason this album is in the number 3 spot and the other 2 are above it is because, to my ears, it kind of just sounds like they're using the same formula and sound and style that they did on For Those Who Have Heart prior, which isn't a bad thing, but for me, and again in full discography context, this album is really the only album that does that. This band has been somewhat consistently putting in new elements into their albums. That being said, though, it's still a really good execution of it, and some of my favorite songs from this band are on this album. Most notably, Mr. Highway's Thinking About the End, with that kind of slight melodic death metal influence in the verses with those harmonized pivot riffs. Super emotional chorus with those like echoey, clean guitars in the background, adding just that awesome extra layer of texture. There's, of course, the iconic call out into the breakdown, which, even call out aside, is one of the best breakdowns I've probably ever heard. And then I love how the song ends on a much more quiet note with some more somber vocals and those clean guitars coming back. Definitely a top 3 song in the A Day to Remember catalog for me. I also love the ballad on here, If It Means a Lot to You, which is one of the rare instances where in rock or metal music, a male and female back and forth style ballad actually really works. On paper, this thing would be really, really corny, but A Day to Remember just knocks it out of the park. Just because the delivery and the musicianship in this song is just so emotional. It captures the feelings that these lyrics convey really well, and the lyrics themselves sort of tell a story. Just about Jeremy, whoever the narrator is in this song, I'm not 100% sure, had to break up with his girlfriend to pursue touring and being in a successful metalcore band. And this is just one of those songs that you know was written to be a live staple just because of the whole sing-along thing. It really works. As far as other tracks, My Life for Hire has some real catchy guitar riffs, especially in those verses, just real bouncy and pretty infectious for one of the heavier cuts on here, sorta. This song is an instance of where they kind of pancake on top of each other, the pop-punk and the metalcore at the same time. It's sung mostly clean, but it does have some screams in the background just for atmosphere and texture. And like I said earlier, those verses and the guitar riffs in the verses do a good job of kind of walking that blurred line between like groovy metal song and fun, bouncy pop-punk song. The more pop-punk-esque tracks on here, like the title track and Have Faith in Me, are really fun and infectious. The only reason this album isn't higher on this list is because they didn't really take their sound anywhere, like they've done on all their other albums. But moving on to number 2 now is For Those Who Have Heart, right before Homesick. Would definitely argue this is like their most purely metalcore album to date, which is one of the reasons why it's one of my favorites. When I first did my initial deep dive into this band's catalog, however many years ago now, this was the album that immediately stuck with me the most. Because as opposed to what I was saying about And Their Name Was Treason, how the album kind of just sounded a little unrefined and the band sounded unsure in themselves, it's the total opposite here. The band sounds so sure of themselves and they really hone in on their formula for this record, and it works beautifully. There's the heavy metalcore verse sections and the big sort of pop-punk-esque choruses, these simple but effective breakdowns. There are some tracks in here that more just blatantly channel hardcore as opposed to metalcore, like even like some of the more upbeat style tracks on here, like Fast Forward 2012 and Show 'Em the Ropes, that intro with those fast punky drums. I never liked the term easycore when describing this band because I've always kind of seen easycore as just kind of pop punk with breakdowns, and A Day to Remember is so much more than that. But a song like Fast Forward to 2012 pretty much is just that. But not for lack of quality at all. You have songs like Speak of the Devil and Colder Than My Heart If You Can Imagine, which are just really, really dramatic and build some serious tension throughout the track. And then tracks like Show 'Em the Ropes and Shot in the Dark are just pure metalcore tracks with just a bit more of a pop-punky influenced chorus. There's some more solid, just pure pop-punk tracks on this album too, like Monument and Here's to the Past. Plot to Bomb the Panhandle is super infectious and does have more metal influences creeping in. I especially love just that just monstrous breakdown that somehow just makes you want to smile at the same time. Not sure how that works. Whereas And Their Name Was Treason felt like a band kind of trying things out. For Those Who Have Heart is the band here just really solidifying their sound, which ultimately is what made this band so unique in the metalcore scene especially. So I'm sure by now you have put the puzzle pieces together to figure out what my number one A Day to Remember album is, but I will still say it anyways, and that is 2013's Common Courtesy. It was really interesting with this album because this was the album that kind of got me into the band and made me do that deep dive into their back catalog. And I wasn't super into it like when I first heard it. I liked their older albums better, but over time I ended up just absolutely falling in love with this record. It's like it took me exploring their back catalog to truly appreciate this record. Because what this album is like a full evolution and maturation of the band's signature sound, like I just talked about on For Those Who Have Heart. Because as much as I love For Those Who Have Heart and Homesick, the songs on there do feel a little bit like robotic as far as metalcore pop punk in the same songs. It's still very enjoyable to me, as you just heard, but one of Common Courtesy's strongest aspects is that it not only improves significantly on both of those sounds, but the transitions on here and the songs as units just sound much more cohesive and smooth. 3 songs just right off the top of my head that instantly do that and instantly execute that transition so well. Dead and Buried is a big one because that is definitely the most kind of topsy-turvy type song just because of how heavy that intro and those verses are and just how pop-punky and fun that chorus is. But it just listen to that song, it sounds like such a tight unit despite these sounds being so disparate. Sometimes You're the Hammer, Sometimes You're the Nail does that really well also, though maybe a little bit more leaning on the metal side for this one, and then right back at it again, even with those tempo changes. This song, how it kind of starts and ends with those same like kind of metalcore breakdowns and riffs, and then there's just like a pop-punk song sandwiched in there. It kind of feels a bit of like a structural like experiment. But it just works. It shouldn't work because, again, these parts are so different from each other, and there's even tempo changes, which makes them even more different sounding. But it working so well in this track makes this one of the most compelling A Day to Remember tracks there is. The songs on here that go for more of that straight metalcore sound are just absolutely fucking crushing. Life Lessons Learned the Hard Way has been a recurring track on my workout playlist for 10 years. And Violence 2 is just another absolute ripper that's just so in your face and is great for your workout playlist. And the more melodic cuts on here are amazing as well. Best of Me, super infectious. Also, I Surrender, which has one of the catchiest choruses on the album is again it's just really, really infectious. I like those warm guitar melodies in the intro. And then you have a song like End of Me, which is a bit more just angsty and downtrodden. There's also the track I'm Already Gone, which has got to be my favorite A Day to Remember ballad of all time. That really intimate, tender, and kind of folky acoustic guitar driving the song, and those really layered vocals from Jeremy in the chorus just make this such... The song just feels like a warm, snug blanket. So yeah, that is my A Day to Remember discography ranking. If you disagree with it, if you agree with it, if you want to put your own lists in the comments so we can have some more specific debate, please do that. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, please hit the subscribe button. I'm totally going to be reviewing Big Ol' Album when it drops in a couple weeks. I'm planning on doing a favorite albums retrospective video on Common Courtesy soon. Also, check the description of the video for my Instagram, Spotify, and Threads links. I'm also going to attach a playlist, Best of A Day to Remember Spotify playlist, so check that out too if you like. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.